Amanda. How are you doing?
Good.
Good. Are you excited to have some piano lessons?
Yes.
Yeah, me too. Are you ready to come in? All right, let's come on in. Perfect. Good job, Amanda. All right. So this is the piano. Have you ever played one before?
No.
No. So we have keys on the piano. What colors do you see?
White
And how about up here?
and black.
Okay, good. Oh, I like how you play that. Now let's see here. Let me see your hands. So how many fingers do we have again?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
Good. And I have 10 too, right?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
So you
11.
I have 11 fingers.
10,
Oh,
10.
phew. I was afraid. I hope I didn't have 11 fingers. Watch how my hand is. Can you go 1, 2, 3?
1, 2.
Good. On the piano, there's all these notes, but you can put notes together. You know what I would like? Can you try and play this note right here? Right there? Right there? Okay. Now, can I try? Let's see here. I like that, don't you? It's very pretty.
I started playing piano by ear as a child. I would come home from church, and whatever they sang, I would go home on my organ and just start to play whatever it was that they sang that given day.
My main instrument's piano. I've played that since I was 7. My dad bought an old baby grand piano from some guy who was trying to get rid of it, and all of us went to the lady next door and took piano lessons. I think it cost like $2 a half hour at the time. Funny to think about that. And then my sisters kind of quit, and I was the only one that ever really stayed with it.
My earliest influence, I believe, was my kindergarten teacher. Her name was Mrs. Fuchs, and she had a piano in her classroom. We gravitated towards each other because she realized I had a passion for music. Music is everything. That's what keeps me going.
By the time I got into high school, I realized that all the people who were having a good time played in the band, so I walked down to the band director's office and said, I'd like to play I think I asked if I could play the clarinet or the cornet or something like that, and the band director said, I don't need any of those instruments. You're tall, you can play tuba. So
anything worth doing is hard work. Music's one of them. It's a life lesson in anything that you do. Learn it when you're young. You can pass it on in any other aspect of your life. Yet music, when it's, when you get good at it, it's so easy then, and it's so enjoyable, and it brings joy to everybody involved.
when I started at the library, one of the first projects that I was working on, there was a fellow named Lloyd Farrar who was doing kind of an early history of the J.W. Pepper Company. Now, this is a company that traces its beginnings back to probably about 1876, about the time of the centennial, the 100th birthday of the United States, which was celebrated here in Philadelphia. J.W. Pepper was probably one of the largest and most important music publishers of that time, and I doubt that there was a town in the United States that didn't have a theater that didn't have literally hundreds of pieces published by J.W. Pepper by reputable American composers. And by the turn of the century, it's a fairly well-known fact that there were probably 300,000 or 400,000 bands in the United States at that time. So Pepper capitalizes on that. He becomes helpful to that community that way by publishing all of this music that's playable by a brass band, or as he advertised it, brass or reed band. So you see this idea that Pepper is a man ahead of his time, but also very much a man of his time. So he realizes that there's a need for something, and he steps in with high-quality things that makes it available then.
Pepper was a major player in the creation of musical instruments and the provision of musical instruments for a country that was just smitten by brass bands and brass instruments. In 1880 or maybe 1881, Pepper had gotten to know Henry John Diston, who was a huge name in instrument manufacturing. Diston had come to the United States, was in New York at that time. Pepper somehow was able to convince Diston to come down to Philadelphia with him and to help him build a factory to create instruments.
So that supplies, not only you're supplying the music that's played by these bands, but you're also supplying the drums and the cornets and the clarinets. Then you put on top of that, he decides, well, if you have the instruments and you have the music, well, you're going to need uniforms too. They're the people who made the first uniforms for the Sousa band. They advertised the new Marine Band cap in their catalog. Pepper signs a contract with John Philip Sousa saying, I'd like 5 or 6 of your marches. Some of Sousa's earliest pieces and some of the pieces that would catapult him into fame as the March King were initially published in the 1880s by J.W. Pepper.
While he was still with the Marine Band, he talked to Pepper, who apparently he had a relationship with, and said, I want you to build a horn for me that's sort of like a helicon, but I want you to change the bell and make it bigger, point it straight up. He's quoted as saying he wanted the sound to diffuse over the band like frosting on a cake. He didn't want it in your face. He just wanted it to all of a sudden just be experienced everywhere as the bottom of the band. That's what he got. And from that point on, again, you don't see a better band than the Sousa band. I think the sousaphone was part of that.
I feel certain that the company has been able to provide customers with a satisfying experience throughout its history, or it wouldn't have survived. I'm going to guess that in the Pepper family era, it was because they had the right product and could either show it to them on demand or deliver it to some place that maybe didn't have a music store locally.
By the 1920s, they see that the school band movement is largely taking over that community band movement or the town band sort of thing. And they realize, hey, the real market here, the real way we can be helpful and be useful to these people is to make our catalog available to this burgeoning new school band movement. And they really become the great distributor of music, the kind of the warehouse where the various publishers can warehouse their music. And Pepper has the ability to get that music out to a school band in Keokuk, Iowa, or in Utah.
Being able to deliver a customer a satisfactory experience where they wanted to receive it was important at that time. Certainly that carries through till now.
As you look at the great pantheon of music businesses in the United States that have come and gone because they weren't able to adapt to new situations that way, publishers that this is all we're publishing high-end piano music. You know, by the 1930s, they're gone. The Depression hits. Obviously, that has a huge impact on the school music programs. Also, you have the advent of the big band era. People in the music industry made it through the Depression, basically clinging to the rope by their nails that way. World War II hits, and several people are lucky.
Evidently, when Jimmy Pepper died and his son Howard took it over, and then Howard died, a group of employees tried to run the company and did not do so very successfully. The date on the first articles of incorporation here are 16th day of September, 1942. Dad had heard that the Pepper Company was being sold in bankruptcy, and I don't know how he happened to hear that, but in any event, my dad was a salesman, and he quickly decided that that couldn't happen.
If you look at flashback in those days, he had some investors, and he came in and he didn't want to see this grand old company ceased to exist. He had a real love of what Pepper stood for. He knew of Pepper. And when he got into it, it became a family event for everybody. Everyone contributed, tremendous work ethic. Back in those days, everyone did what they could, and you'd have 2 or 3 jobs. I know my father did as a youngster, but they would contribute to the family pot, and that's what it took. It took a lot of sacrifice back then to turn a company around.
Yeah, there were some lean years back then. To Dad's credit, when he became president, he started doing some things that needed to be done in order for the company to grow.
The company was not producing enough money so anybody could take any salary out of it. And indeed, Dad took no salary. Mother went to work as a waitress and then as a hostess. And I went to work at night, believe it or not. This was at 13 or 14 years of age. And I went to school during the day, and then I worked from 5 to 12 at night. And everybody kicked in their money into the family kitty because we couldn't take any money out of the firm.
I still think one of the greatest things about my dad was just the respect factor. He respected everybody, and he taught you to respect everybody. And that's a wonderful trait to have. He didn't think of himself as being better than anyone else. He also believed in working hard. Hard work pays off.
And I can remember after I graduated from high school in 1946, Dad gave me a briefcase and some catalogs and said, all right, go out and call on schools. And the first school I called on was Lansdowne High School, a fellow named Don Corbin. And by this time I'd graduated from high school, went directly into the business. But we actually went out and knocked on doors and called on schools in the area.
The most important thing I learned from Dad was patience. As a young guy, I guess I wasn't unique in this area, but I kind of lacked a little patience and maturity. And Dad had a way of, it was 1,000 little pushes and not one big push that he would make you a better person. And at the time, you didn't really realize what he was doing, but he was a crafty little son of a gun. And that's one of the things. He actually made me into a better person.
Interestingly enough, though, for the first 10 years of operation from 42 to 52, the corporation had a net loss. I can remember that for those 10 years. And in the early 50s, I went out and hired a gentleman by the name of Don Razey, R-A-Z-E-Y, who was the band director at Haddonfield High School. One of the reasons for bringing Don Razey in the 50s was because I wanted someone who had been on the other side of the fence as a user to give us insights into materials that we should be promoting. And about this time, my dad's health started to fail. He had his first heart attack in 1958, and then his health rapidly deteriorated, and of course he died in 63.
Dad was a unique guy. He was very compassionate, cared deeply about the employees, because that's who makes it happen.
Probably the greatest thing my father ever told me from a business management standpoint was to hire the right people and then get out of the way. He said, put the time in, get the right people in the right places, and then back off and let them do their thing.
In 1966, I decided that our mail order efforts in various parts of the country were not really going to be fruitful unless we established a local identity. And so I decided to open a branch in Atlanta. I went down to the Florida State meeting in 1966, January, and there I met Ron Rowe.
Dean was great at putting together people that were not necessarily connected with his family. He knew that he needed outside talent and outside perspective, and he wanted to open a branch in Atlanta. And he was looking for somebody to manage the branch. So luckily for me, he hired me.
In 73, Ron was now general manager of the company, and he, of course, has been the guiding light, the driving force in getting us into automation. and decided that indeed we had to have automation. We were just being swamped with paper.
The company at one point was on the verge of us losing it. The bank had called our loan. Dean called me into his office one day, and I never saw a look on his face quite like it. And he said, "Can you figure out a way that we can come up with $1.75 million in a hurry? Because that's what we owe the bank." We were also, at that time, trying to automate the company. And I will remember, again, when Dean called me into the office, and he would say, "Okay, I've studied your proposal. I've studied what you want to do here. But you do understand that if this doesn't work, we'll probably lose the company and go bankrupt." And I said, "Yeah, I understand that, Dean, but I really think it will work." And it did work, thanks to Bob Murphy, because he's the one that made it work.
They were looking for somebody that would take charge and get things going for them. They were convinced that handling the small transactions in sheet music, you couldn't do it manually. You needed a computer to really handle that properly.
One of the things that impresses you when you first start working here is the volume of product that is moved. I'd never seen that much printed music in one place in my life.
We tried to lead the field and do things that when you look back at it, no one else had any concept of. One of the things we did was have a very close association with IBM, and that's where the Pepper National Music Network gave birth. The Pepper National Music Network was long before anybody even heard the word internet.
Our customers would get on the computer and 1,200, 2,400 baud modem, and they would connect via a toll-free line that we paid for. And they could communicate with each other, share ideas. They could shop for music online, all text-based now, no graphics. It cost us a lot of money in phone bills, but it also transitioned us into the internet. And it was really ahead of its time. No one was even thinking about this, but we moved right from PNMN into the internet, and we were off and running.
The electronic delivery didn't happen anywhere nearly as fast as we thought. What did happen very rapidly was that electronic marketing became very important, and the way we promote and the way we interface with our customers has changed dramatically. And it started with that piece of the puzzle.
One of the benefits that Pepper had and we leveraged strongly was, for some reason, our customers need the music yesterday. But we were able to ship the same day and get it to them. And we would create a catalog and say, "This is what you need." And our customers began to trust us because there's a lot to go through. You know, of all the teachers out there, music teachers are the ones that have the least amount of time. They do so much. They're very committed, very dedicated individuals.
It took a while, but I think the teachers, through dealing with us for years, realized that they could depend upon what we were recommending. And it saved them time, and they were very thankful of that because we had people in place that were very good at what they did.
Many of our key employees have been customers. They understand what our customers need. Ultimately, we need to be indispensable to our customer. We need to be the ones that makes their day easier. They got a lot to do. They got a lot of kids and a lot of classes, and they're not paid enough. And they have challenges with parents and school boards, and they have their own families to worry about. So anything we can do to make their day easier, to be the go-to company for anything, the better it'll be for us.
Dean decided that he wanted to get into or experiment or at least stick a toe in the water of the pop music business.
Dad sent me an LP one year, and he said, I'm 50%, we're back in this group. And I think it was, at the time, Wicked Lester.
Wicked Lester, and there was one Blance.
Blance was before that.
Yeah.
It cost us $10,000 to bring in Wicked Lester, pay all their expenses, and rent the recording studio. So in those days, $10,000 was not exactly chump change.
Dad told me Shortly after this was, that the deal was made, he went to New York for a recording session. And he says, these guys record like, at 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning. So here's my dad in a business suit with these guys. He said he came out of that thing with the biggest headache he's ever had in his life.
And he didn't like rock.
He didn't like rock, and it was loud. And he said, I'm glad I did it, but I don't want to do that again. It was tough.
Yeah.
So Wicked Lester, the deal was that we would hold the copyrights for all of the songs. We didn't care about selling the records. That's not what we did. Wicked Lester didn't quite make it. A year went by, and we put $10,000 up again for Wicked Lester to come back and do another recording. Didn't work. So we were down $20,000, and Dean decided that was the end of that. We're not going to do that anymore.
It was a shot in the dark. It was a dart, trying to diversify a little bit, take a chance on this rock and roll thing going on.
They went ahead and hired a new manager, and they said, we're going to change your image, and we're going to change your name. We're going to paint you up a little bit, and we're going to call you Kiss.
Wicked Lester disbanded, but we still had the contract for the songs that were on the records. The group that was formed by 2 of the members became Kiss. Pepper at that time owned all the copyrights for the first 2 Kiss albums, Kiss and Kiss Alive.
Here's a company that has been able to kind of reinvent itself over and over and over again as times change, as the media changes, as the way people consume music or make music available. This company has been able to survive that way, and it's really a testament to the thinking of these people. And I think it goes back to James W. Pepper. I think he established that sort of philosophy with this company that's stayed with it and successfully stayed with it to right here this day.
Why is Pepper here still today?
Brilliant leadership.
That's what my father would say. That's what he would say. Yeah, no, that's what he would say as a joke. I mean, but because of our focus, we focus on our people and our customers. Without having the proper culture and the right people, you can't do the latter, which is focus on the customer.
I'd like to think that he'd be very proud of where it is. I've been out of the business for a while. I'm on the board, but this gentleman here has done an outstanding job, and we continue to grow, and we're very lucky.
As we get larger and do more things, people development becomes unbelievably important. Probably the most rewarding part is being able to get people to do things that they wanted to do but maybe thought they'd never have the chance. Certainly that includes me.
It wasn't a personal challenge at all. It was, without a doubt, my experience at Pepper was the most rewarding time of my life.
I think a lot of my fond memories of Pepper are the fact that when you achieve something, you can build on that and keep going forward. And we made a lot of milestone achievements in creating new and better ways to serve the customer.
As we look forward to challenges in the future with the way our business runs and the belief that we wanted to be around for another 140 years, certainly we're going to have to be a part of the advocacy effort to make sure that a broad liberal arts education, which includes music, is part of the curriculum. A broad-based education is important because it expands the mind, it changes the way you think, it rewires your brain. So anything that we can do to expand the ways we think is going to be helpful to young minds.
There's something about creating that we love to be a part of. That's just the way we're wired as human beings. And music is a part of creating something, creating a sound together with other people oftentimes. And then that creates something beautiful that warms our heart or moves us in some way. And you know, music is a powerful medium. I love it because of all of those things. And I think we need music because that's the way we're wired. That's part of the fabric of being human.
Music makes or gives everybody the ability to feel like they are a part of something. In our school, we have kids who are upper middle class. We have kids who have nothing. I mean, absolutely nothing. They live in shelters, or some of them live in cars, you'll find out. You have your special needs students. You have your gambit. And when they come together in a music classroom and make music together, it's just the most magical moment.
When I worked in a music therapy capacity, teaching in a school with some of the students who were nonverbal, I had a student who really was not very verbal at all, yet he could sing. So he would sing complete songs, and you would never know he was like a nonverbal person. And then when you'd go to talk to the child, you know, it was completely different. So if you would just see that out of context, you'd have no idea. So being able to work with a child and have them sing lyrically, in tune, who was nonverbal, that was an awesome moment.
I had a student in middle school. That was around the time when skinheads were becoming really, really big. And he had sort of taken on that personality, the boots, the fatigues, the shaved hair. By the time he left me in middle school, he was no longer of that mentality, grew out his hair, started to embrace a lot of the other cultures. And he says it's because I opened his eyes that we're not different. We're all the same. And that's all I want for my kids. Be accepting of people being different. Be unique, but accept everybody's uniqueness. Everybody's not going to be just like you. Everybody's not going to love the same music, but be open to listen to what they have to say. Be open to listen to their music. And wouldn't the world be so much better if that was a reality?
When I walk into work, the thing that I hope is successful is the ability to pass an opportunity on to somebody else. It's a slow process. It doesn't always work. But it's a responsibility to whatever came before and whatever will come next.
Boy, if I'd look at the history of a company like J.W. Pepper, and if I could think of things that have made it successful, but also challenges that take it into the 21st century, I'd probably say that the truly remarkable thing about this organization was what Mr. Pepper started when he initially got this thing going, was seeing a need and meeting it, being flexible as times change, and being helpful. Not so long ago, I was working on a film about Eleanor Roosevelt, who was a game changer. And I asked her granddaughter, I said, what made your grandmother special? And she said, she just wanted to be helpful. And I thought, you know, when you think about it, that's really very simple, and at the same time, extraordinarily difficult. And I think if you're able to be flexible, to change with the times, and most importantly, be helpful, I think you'll be a success.